Right, well here we are. I've got it up on the workbench at the moment, and I've decided I'm going to strip this down now. Let's just see the state of the actual main bearings inside of the crank, on the crank bearing. So to do that, there's loads to do. Let me show you. As you can see, the engine's very, very dirty. It's still got the centre stand attached to it. And what I've been doing is just giving it a clean over with some solution to get all the dirt and grease off it. And as you can see, the side casing has got all the paint that's actually chipped off, and it's showing the actual under the aluminium casing itself. What I'm going to do actually, I'm going to actually give that a refinish, so that will be respray painted. And if we've got the hydro dipping set up, I'll probably even give it a carbon dip with the hydrographic. So although we're not there yet with the hydrographics, as you know if you've been watching that series of videos, we're going to be doing a test run probably this weekend. I'm going to be filling out from my hot tub, so you'll see us actually having a little go, not properly, it's just a mock-up sort of thing, just to make sure that the tank's not leaking and then the actual procedure's going to work. So stay tuned for the weekend, and probably maybe Sunday you'll see that video, but till then we're going to be doing this strip down on the TGB moped engine. So what I'm basically doing is literally just giving it a good clean down with this, it's just like a degreaser basically, so I'm just giving it a good clean over with that. Again, not going to be too critical here, because I mean when it's actually stripped down and before I reassemble, all the parts are going to come off, but as you normally the bits you can't get to, I'm just giving it a good sort of swish down with this fluid just to make it a lot easier in the stripping down procedure. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to take the centre stand off, and then the cylinder head and the barrel, the piston, until we get to the stage where I'm going to actually split the crank. Right, I've got to knock this shaft out here, and it appears there's a couple of circlips on there, so maybe I have to lift them off. Let's get a screwdriver. Always be careful when removing circlips, because they've got a tendency to fly off. Let's try these circlip pliers. There we go. Makes life so much easier when you've got the right tools. I got one of these things the other day. It's a magnetic tool tray, just for, as you can see, just dropping your nuts and bolts in. Look, quite a handy tool to have. I've got a habit of putting them in little containers, knocking them over, they all go everywhere, so hopefully that will save me from doing that. So let's just drift that out. Here we go. That's just the bar where the actual bar that goes through the whole top mounting in goes. Now this is the holder for the reed valves in here, so that is, looks like an Allen key. Again, I've not had this off before, but obviously someone else has, because one of them's got a screw in there, so it's been off before. Someone's obviously lost the original nut for that, but if I've got one floating about, I'll re-put a Allen key in there. And again, it's a matter of just making sure that you know the procedure for putting things back together. You could take pictures, as I said to you once before, or you can, if you've got a manual, all well and good, but I mean I haven't got a manual for this, so I'm just going by common sense really. And I've also got the video to look back on for reassembly. Not that two-stroke engines are hard to work on anyway, they're pretty simple, but if you've never done it before, you know, some things have to be taken off in a certain order. So a lot of people, when they tune these bikes up, tend to put on a lot of bolt-on goodies, and it's a lot of the bolt-on goodies that I'm actually taking off now. Things like the reed valves, for example, that you can get uprated, don't really work on its own on a standard engine. It's sort of, they all work with a combination of each other when you sort of tune in one of these two-strokes, but we're not into that at the moment. All we want to do is basically get this to a stage where we can get it running again and de-restrict it as what you normally get here in the UK. So just remove that pipe there, and here's the reed valve assembly. This is where the actual fuel air mixture goes in via this little petal reed. You probably can't see that, but they're normally set up by the amount of curve on this metal bar there, and the reeds open to a maximum of where that bar is. So again, these are all tuned parts at the end of the day, but don't damn it, if you drop that you could bend that and then you'll muck up the settings. So there is settings for these, but they're pre-cast, preset at the factories. So that's that. That's the reed valve out. Then we've also got the oil pump here that mixes the oil off of the crankshaft. There's probably some worm gear in there, so I'm just going to get another Allen key here to remove that. That was a 5mm one, by the way. This one looks like a 4mm, slightly smaller size. And again, it's the things like the oil pumps that you don't want to take for granted that they're okay. These things are adjustable, and you never know who's been playing with them before, so I'm going to be taking it off, and obviously I will service this as well. Here we go. Yeah, there is a little, looks like a gasket on there, so just lift it up. That's the bottom part of the actual pump there, which is just like a slot that goes into a little cam there, and that will obviously be lifted out, and there should be some sort of worm gear on the end there, but that you can actually strip down and clean that out and actually set that up again, so I'll be doing that as well. Right, well there we go, that's the inside of the reed where the reed valve's going. Now you don't want to get any rubbish in there. If you're actually taking the reed valve cover off with the bike in situ because you want to change your reeds, I don't know whether you can actually see there, but if I turn, you can actually see the piston going up and down in there, so that's a totally clean environment in there, so you don't ever want to drop any rubbish in there. So there we go, just to let you see the inside there, the piston goes up and down in the engine there. And it's some sort of way you can get an indication if your engine's seized up without taking your head off. But that pump there, as you can see, if I just rotate the crank, as I'm doing at the moment, you can see that little cam there is actually turning slightly. And that rotates, and that's what turns your oil pump, which pushes oil into your carburetor. And that then mixes, and then it goes into the engine via this way. So that's that. And I'm just going to remove the cylinder head now. Again, do these diagonally. There's 4 nuts that hold it on. They should be torqued up when you put it back on, but I'm doing it on the diagonal pattern there, as you can see. Just try and do them all, because these don't only just hold the cylinder head on, these hold your barrel on as well. So once you get them loose, like I've just done there, we can then undo them by hand. As you probably know, those of you who know about two-stroke engines, there's no valves or anything in one of these. It's literally these 4 nuts that hold the cylinder head on. So if you think you might have engine trouble, it's easy just to whip the cylinder head off, and you can normally tell by the bore and the top of the piston if your bike's had a partial seize or seize up sort of thing. So just by taking the top of the cylinder head on, we'll reveal how the inside of the engine really is. I'm not talking about your crank here, because that's a problem we've identified further down. Right, that's them 4 off. As you can see under here, first time we've looked in here, there's our cylinder head. Now there's some little chips in the cylinder head there, which indicates that it had possible problems in the past. Now again, this is the barrel. We're just going to lift the barrel off now. Again, be very careful when you do this. Just pull that off there like that, over the studs. There's the cylinder head gasket. That's normally a copper gasket, so again I will be sourcing a new one of them. Now we can actually look inside the engine here. Now let me go and get a cloth. So this is where we can actually see how bad the inside of the engine is, if it's had much wear at all. Let's just clean that out. Down there. Right, I'm looking down the boards there. I don't know, it might have had some partial seizure down at the bottom there actually. So let's take a closer look at the piston. Again, the piston looks like it's had some sort of I don't know whether it's detonation on it or something, or it just looks like something, it might have thrown some rings in the past, I don't know, but there are some little pits in the top of the piston there, which not a very good sign. But yeah, I mean, as you can see around the top of the piston there, it looks like it's possibly lost rings in the past, and whoever's done it might have just replaced the rings by the looks of it. But there is some wear on that piston. Realistically, that really wants a new top end set, really. You know, I wouldn't be happy with that if I was going to sell that to someone. So we'll see what we're going to do with that. But as you can see, that's the top of the engine off now. But what we have to do is to remove the rotor there. That's got to come off. We've got to remove this side casing. That's got to come off. The variator at the front there, that's got to come off, because that seam down the middle there, as you can probably see there, that's what we need to be splitting to get the crankshaft out and to get the crank seals and the crank bearings. So that's the next stage of the game. Right, well, I was in the process of taking the centre stand pin out. I actually took the circlip out there, and there's a little washer there, and you're supposed to be able to drift that pin out. Well, I've tried it and I've heated it up and it just didn't want to know, so as you can probably see there, I've had to cut that with a Dremel tool so that I can actually separate the cases. So that's actually stuck in there, but I'll be able to get that out once I get it on the worktop and really heat it up properly, and then drift it out, and I'll have to get another pin to go in there. So I'm just going to leave that on there for the moment, that stand. I can't do nothing about that at the moment, so I'll just carry on taking these nuts and bolts out, these Allen keys out around the outside of this casing, and pull this casing off. And as you can see there, let's go around the right way first of all. This is the way it would be up as you would be looking at it. Underneath here you've got this is your variator, and you've got your variator weights underneath there. So we've got to take all this off. We don't need to take the back one off, we just need to take the front pulley off, because that connects directly, as you can see, to our crankshaft there. So we need to get this variator off and disassemble that. Right, so undo this. Don't forget this is a left-handed thread, people. Then that comes off. The belt I've already taken off there. And as you can see, the variator is in two parts. Let's pull that belt through there a bit. You've got the spacer thing there. Pull out. And don't forget you've got the variator weights which sit under here. And there's the underside of the variator, but if you can see in there, there's the variator weight sitting on that remaining piece in there, as you can see there. Now these are what you change, these little weights. Let me put these back in the container so you can actually see them. If I just turn it over and put that back on there like that, you'll see it in place. These are actually quite dirty and probably get a bit gummed up. They've got to run freely, you see. As the engine rotates and spins around faster and faster, these weights get thrown out. Centrifugally get thrown outwards, as you can see there. Look, make sure these little things don't fall out as they've just done for me. If I just remove that, you can see as this spins around faster, these get thrown outwards, and as they get thrown outwards, they lift up, as you can see. And as they lift up, they push this plate outwards, which in turn makes the gap there smaller, which makes the belt that runs in there run higher. And as the belt runs higher on the cog, it changes the gear ratio. So that's basically what the variator does. And by altering the weight of them rollers in there, you can alter the way that the power comes in. So that's just one of the ways that you can alter the power on the variator. And they come in different weights. So that's part of the alterations that the variator does. And in the same breath, you've also got under your clutch, this is your main clutch there, you've got the same sort of pulley operation under here, where this also opens and closes via a big spring that sits under the clutch. And you can also dictate on where the clutch engages, either lower down the rev range or higher up the rev range, by the actual clutch springs that actually hold the clutch in place under this under this housing here, the clutch drum. And that controls how high the revs are between the clutch start engages. So there's different ways of actually controlling the power output, or the way the power is delivered, and how high the engine revs, which is by your variator and your spring, the big spring, or how fast the engine revs before the clutch bites by actually changing the actual springs on the clutch, centrifugal clutch, and they're also colour coded as well. Some people do one without the other and get the balance wrong, and you'll find it might all rev and then it won't pull or whatever, or it revs too high to take away and it hasn't got. So it's a matter of balancing out the performance parts of both the variator weights and the clutch and the final drive spring tension. So you need to know that, and it's not just, most people just guess it, but ask someone who knows, because I personally don't know what the setup is. But in this bike it's just hopefully standard. Them variator weights look standard, so we're going to obviously go for a setup probably standard, I would imagine. So anyway, that's that off. We're then going to lift out the next gear here, and this is the starter motor ring gear, so that goes on next. And I don't know if you can see, there's our outer seal, crankcase seal, there on this side of the engine, and underneath that is the bearing. But as you can see there, can you see that play there? Now that play indicates to me that the crankcase seal isn't good enough, and we ain't getting the full, we're not going to have enough crankcase pressure for the engine to compress and fire. So as you can see there, that is a real bad bearing, and it's actually affected the seal, so that's why we're losing compression through these crankcase seals that are blown. So that's why it ain't starting. Right, so I'm just going to clean the rest of this casing up now and strip it down, and we're going to start work in another video now on the hydrographics tank. Hopefully going to get some work done on that. So I hope you like this video. This is the TGB moped video, and we'll see you again in the next TGB video, where we'll have the crankcase split and we'll have a look inside. It looks like I'm probably going to be fitting a new top end kit to this. Maybe I may go for a 70cc performance kit, and we might as well put a new crank in it as well, because that's what we're going to do. Anyway, thanks very much. See you in the next video. Bye for now.